So this is STEM mini lesson on arc length for Algebra 2. We're looking at these two examples from the notes, and I've got the problem worked out on the notes, but I wanted to show you a video of how I worked it out. So we want to look at the ratio in order to find the arc length. Remember, it's part of the circumference. So a circumference of a circle is 2 times pi times the radius. Of course, 2 times the radius is the diameter. If they just give you the diameter, you could do the diameter times pi. But notice they gave me the radius here of 9 yards. So the idea is we want to look at ratios, and the ratio of the central angle, which is 45 degrees, to the whole angle of the circle. Remember, circles have 360 degrees. Notice I left the degrees off because degrees divided by degrees would divide out to 1. And that should be equal to the arc length that we're looking at over the entire circumference of the circle. 2 times pi times the radius. Oops, and the radius is 9 yards. Sorry, I need to fill that in, 9 yards. I'm going to leave units out of this. You can have them in there and they'll work their way out at the end. I'm going to leave it out, but if you do leave units out here, you have to remember to put them in at the end. We don't want any bald answers, they say. Any answers without units when units are given in the problem. All right, so 2 times 9 is 18. Let's go ahead and just write this as 45 over 360. The small angle to the whole angle should be in proportion to the arc length to the entire length of the circle, around the circle, 18 pi. All right, and then remember, whenever you have two ratios that are equal to each other, they're in proportion, you're allowed to cross multiply 360 times L, and that should equal 18 pi times 45. So I'm going to leave the pi here and start working it out in terms of pi. I'll convert it to decimal at the end. It just makes my multiplication easier to do 18 times 45. And no, I don't know that off the top of my head. I have a calculator next to me. 45 times 18 is 810 times pi. Then what we do at the very end, all we have to do now is solve for L. So we just divide out both sides, or divide both sides by 360. That would give us L equals 810 divided by 360. Oops. So what I'm doing is my calculator, and it gave me a fraction, so I'm going to let it give me a decimal. 810 times pi divided by 360. So I'm just going to do 810 divided by 360. That gives me 2.25. And then we have times pi. This would be my answer in terms of pi. We don't want to forget our units. This was going to be yards. The yards came from down here when we multiply. You have yards in here. But for this assignment, we're going to go ahead and convert it to decimal. I am going to use the pi button on my calculator. Pi is an irrational number, meaning that it is a lot of non-repeating decimals, so I don't want to round it off until the very end. So I'm going to do 2.25 times pi. And we get a final answer, an exact decimal answer of 7. I'm going to go ahead and round to the nearest tenth, 7.1 yards. My answer was 7.06858. I'm going to round it up to 7.1 yards for the arc length. Just remember, in the future in Algebra 2, once we get past our mini lessons on geometry, that we are going to start using 3 decimal places in Algebra 2. But 2 is fine for now. So there's the process on the first one. I'll do another video for number 2.